Well, hey everybody, my name is Jared Malott,
My name is Mateo Calis.
and this is the Coltist, episode 11. We're gonna call this Once, the MPJ
MPJ.
appreciation episode.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so uh obviously riding high, Colts get a big win under the big lights. I mean it's against the Jets and they kind of did let them
Yeah.
back in the game late, but it was a
Against
primetime
the
win.
Jets. Yeah, but it's a win against the third string quarterback and the worst team in the NFL. And you allow them to score 30 points. I mean, I don't want to be like downer, especially when you win like by 15.
Right.
But those last four drives by the Jets, like just how can you allow a third string quarterback on perhaps the worst offense the NFL will see this year to put up 30 on you?
I mean, it's those
Oh,
kinds of
yeah.
things that it would leave most of us up at night wondering if the hammer was going to fall tomorrow. But as we've been pointing out here, ain't nobody getting fired. The division's too winnable. Although we were kind of talking about before we started recording about how, God, if the Colts had just won one of those two games against the
Yeah.
Titans, then because I'm afraid of what's going to happen is the Colts are going to be in a position to make the playoffs, and then somebody's going to get hurt, and it's going to be their end of their career. And that's my fear is like you've pointed out here. When is the time that we sit Carson Wentz?
Yeah, not gonna happen. I
And
just gave
and
up on that thought. Yeah.
and we've decided that what will happen instead is that far too much time will pass where we should have already sat him. But the Colts play themselves into potentially making the playoffs, and then you're kind of choosing, right?
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah, I know
sacrificing?
this team. Now this team is not doing that. They have a chance, that they are playing to make it.
Oh, for sure.
If
The
they are eliminated, I just don't see them benching Wentz. If they did not bench him against the Jets, they are not benching him, not unless he's injured.
No, I
There's
mean if you don't
no
take
shot of
him
that.
out when you're up big, you're not gonna bench him. He's shown he's also not gonna play so poorly that you have to take him out. And he's also shown that he's tough, so he can even get like banged up and still play.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Now
I think,
I have
like I said,
a question for you. Like considering how some Colts fan like booed Andrew Luck, do you think that if the Colts are out of the playoff and Reich is insisting on playing Wentz, do you think that the fans boo him?
I don't think Colts fans are that smart.
Yeah,
Like
no.
I don't think that they'll boo. No, on the whole, because most people just want to drink beer and watch their team win, right? They don't really care about
Yeah,
any of that other
yeah, I get that.
none of that other shit matters, right? So they're not thinking about how like you and I are kind of thinking about. We were talking about before this podcast started. Look, Chris Ballard said at the beginning of the year, this is sort of an eval year. I don't really know
Yeah,
if we're in our Super Bowl window. I think it's cracking. I think that's what he said.
yeah, yeah.
We're
He
not
said
quite
exactly that.
in
Yeah,
the window. Yeah, I guess he was taking that a little too literally. But yeah, I think I think the Colts have the potential to go like a game farther with this sort of team
with
makeup than
Wentz
they
in there.
did
Yeah,
last year. Yeah, like I would take Wentz over Rivers in
yeah,
that game
perhaps.
against Buffalo last year, for example, right? I'd take him and I'd say, yeah, you might be able to overcome your kicker missing like
Those two
three
mistakes. Yeah,
kicks or whatever. You
Kimoko
might be able,
Touré's offside and costed the team
mhm.
4 points.
Yeah. So when I think about um what 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 are the odds the Colts make the playoffs, and what are the odds the Colts bench Carson Wentz, and they're going in opposite directions, right? So the problem is like the time frame you should have sat him. We're watching it go by, right? Where we're like, bro, you're up huge in this Jets game. It's meaningless. Bench him. Let Ellinger
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
No, they don't do that. And then you think about like, are you doing it against the Jags? No, You got to strike fear in the heart of a division opponent. They're going to come out and put a full game plan together. They're going to go out there and play, and they're going to beat the piss out of the Jags on Sunday. And for what? And then they've got tough opponents coming up after that. But obviously, kind of putting the cart before the horse. It was good to see the Colts play dominant football for, say, like a half to 3/4.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've said that like the bulk of the time Frank Reich's been a coach in the league, where it really feels like they can hold it together for like 3/4. They're either a slow starter and they finish well, right? Or they blow people out and they let them back into the game late, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what happened like against the Ravens, against the Titans, against the Jets, like to a degree.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened in those. Yeah. So basically, yeah, completely agree. Yeah, now that I think about it. Against the Rams, against the Seahawks, you start like shit and then you recover. Titans second game, Ravens game, Jets game to a degree, and the only like complete games are the ones against the Texans and perhaps the Dolphins. But yeah, they also let the Dolphins back in the game late.
Right. Which has
Yeah.
been sort of like the negative for the Colts and for, I can't tell you going on how long, where they'd have someone just down and then they're scoring 17 points in third and you're just like, hey, now somebody's gonna get hurt, we're gonna turn the ball over, now they're scoring to tie, right?
Yeah.
We were up 24-0. This should have never happened. And I feel like, again, it's something I've been harping on my whole life. It's all about personnel management. And man, like I said, I think Chris Ballard said this is an eval year and then just stuck his nose in the tape, right? Like he's been, feels like dead silent. And I have a feeling he's trying to control the noise. Now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm sitting down recording a podcast and I'm pondering aloud why you haven't seen or heard much from Chris Ballard, because they've been filming Hard Knocks and he's probably been trying to like, keep the team together. Because I imagine there's some side conversations being had about, I don't know, like unvaccinated players.
Yeah. What's the do we know like what the unvaccinated player rate is like today? Do we have like a
So
tracker on that or?
I thought the Colts were like 95%. It was really like Darius Leonard, Carson Wentz, and like two other players that are like a coach.
I don't know if Nelson is vaccinated. I saw him like wearing a face mask and stuff. I don't know about that one. So yeah, basically like three of your most important players on the team are not vaccinated. Just trouble waiting to
Smooth.
happen.
Yep. It's, I don't know. It seems
Do you
silly
now
thing to do. Silly thing
here's
to do.
another conspiracy theory. Do you believe that knowing full well like you're going into the season with your top three players unvaccinated, do you believe that Ballard took that into account in his decision to say like this is an evaluation year? Like because you don't want to like invest heavily in this season if you know that there's a chance that your starting quarterback, your all pro left guard, and your starting linebacker and leader of the defense are missing like 2 games because of COVID.
Yeah, and I think I don't know what'll have to happen. It's just so silly. Like, why would you just get vaccinated? You're especially worth millions. Like, I'm worth nothing, right? Like, I'm barely a homeowner. It was one of the first people to get in line and get vaccinated because,
Yeah.
like, hey, I don't want to get I don't want to get COVID, get really sick, get a big hospital bill, something stupid, and then lose my house, right? So I'm gonna go get vaccinated. This makes total sense for me. And these guys are signing $100 million contracts, and they're like, "Oh, my body's too precious to put a drug in." It's like, really? You'd put a cortisone shot in that bitch the moment you've hyperextended your elbow. You're sticking cortisone in that thing, and you've been
And not
doing
even
that.
that, you're getting hit by like pure force of like 240-pound all muscle players
right,
getting hit in the face, like directly in the head.
right.
It's been proven that it's not good for you to play football. Like in the long term, the risk is still there. And you're like, now that I can do, but I won't get a shot.
Yeah.
I won't get an FDA approved shot for my health for a disease that has killed like millions of people worldwide.
Right.
But yeah, I will still willingly like let a 300-pound massive player hit me in the head. Yes, what is your reasoning, you know?
I have no I other than not everyone's version of the American dream is the same, right?
Yeah.
Because very clearly, all three of those players had to get vaccines their entire life to play the football at the level that they've played it at, and then are choosing. And I guess it's probably has something to do with hard knocks. So don't be surprised, right? It's not like we know anything. I'm just guessing if they make a spectacle out of getting vaccinated. And maybe that's sort of why Chris Ballard has been really quiet, because I can imagine being really smart and thinking you've surrounded yourself with really smart people and
Yeah.
you've bet
Yeah,
on
and I believe in it.
people,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden something happens and a very clear decision comes down where everybody has a decision to make, and then your leadership, your player leadership isn't capable of making the right decision.
Yeah.
It absolutely affects my investment, and then I'm wanting to sort of like get away from them being such a focal point of my team. And that's why, from moment one that Frank Wright came in here, he said, the quarterback doesn't make the team. It's 11 players on each side of the ball, plus
Yeah, right.
special teams and backups, stuff like that. And that's because you're going to have shit like this happen, frankly, where I'm sorry, like, if I had my life to do over again, I'd have lived it in a way that I got to the NFL so that I could be in a position to be asked questions like, Jared, what do you think about this? Oh, I was the first one to get vaccinated. Why? Is it, what, are you kidding me? Like, I went to Japan in 1997 and people were wearing masks. What are we talking about? They hosted the Olympics. What are we talking about? Like, hey, should be a no brainer. Masks, vaccines should be an afterthought, because the world's already been doing this. But that's not how America is, right? America is me, I always. Not, well, what about the guy to my left, guy to my person, person to my left and right?
Yeah.
It's Veterans Day in the United States. I want to say this on some form of platform. We do it wrong in the United States. And as a veteran, I get to like get on my little and say something every now. Memorial Day is when you're supposed to be somber and remember people that have died. Veterans Day and like the Marine Corps birthday, these are celebrations, and people got it all fucked up in the United States. Like, we're all partying on Memorial Day weekend, and it's gonna be nice. It's that Indy 500, and it's like, no, that was the somber moment. That's for all the people that have died, and
Yeah.
then this, like, today, all these people at my work today are like, oh my god, happy Veterans Day, it's such a
So
somber
yeah,
day, and you're like,
how do
it's
you
not
say that?
somber. This is a celebration, like, ha, we're still here, motherfucker, you know what I mean? Like, we made it. That's sort of like the Veterans Day, and I get it, it's not celebrated the same. I don't speak for all veterans. I just want to point it out. The way people behaved today was so somber, and you're like, that's awkward, because that's not how I felt. I was saying, FaceTime with all
Yeah,
my
yeah,
Marine
yeah.
buddies today, saying, hey, miss you, we'll see you again soon. Memorial Day, we're more talking about the guys that were missing, right? So it's just kind of funny. I just want to make sure I say that out loud. Like, it is so weird with it being like Veterans Day, the way people act. So
Hey,
it doesn't surprise me about
happy.
vaccines.
What do you say? Like Happy Veterans Day? I had no
Yeah, like,
idea it
happy
was
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day.
Fuck yeah.
Well, Happy Veterans Day to you, Jared.
Thanks, man. But yeah, it's a good thing. It's a celebration. It's a good time in the United States, because a lot of people equate service with patriotism, and then obviously patriotism with nationalism with fascism. Not necessarily the case. Most of the people that I know that served in the military actually have like really good foundational values. You know what I mean? These are really good
Yeah.
people that you want on your side. And everywhere I go, every business I've ever worked for, you always will find like a veteran that's like foundational in what that business is doing well. So I get it, especially when you're talking to somebody that doesn't live in the same country as you and they don't see what that
Yeah.
impact is on your community. It's important to me. It absolutely shapes how I think and how I perceive myself and how I assert myself as based on my time in service and what I learned,
Yeah.
right, is super important. Like when we're talking about football, right? And I don't necessarily sit here and gripe about X's and O's. I don't think I have enough time to also do that. And we got a bunch of guys at Stampede Blue that are all into that X's and O's stuff. What I'm more looking at are the numbers, right? Like we were talking about prior to this podcast, uh, look at Carson Wentz's rating now 10th in the NFL, right? 12th last week, about
Yeah.
14th, 15th the week before. So steadily climbing. Um, and as we've been kind of pointing at, when we look back, I think on the last several quarterbacks to come through here, I think that Carson Wentz will be compared more favorably to like an Andrew Luck when it's all said and done. Could be
Yeah.
could be better because he could play for longer. You never know. Again, I don't know
Yeah.
how that looks in the NFL anymore. I think the NFL is changing in that guys are a little more willing to pack it up and go somewhere else and give somewhere else a shot. For example, today Odell Beckham Jr. released by the Browns, signs
Yeah.
with the
Same with
Rams.
the yeah. Good move for him, And
Yeah. Um,
Rams are going
he
all in, basically
he,
all
he
or
has he
nothing.
has the personality for LA. Um,
Yeah. Now, how will he like get together? In an offense where touches are so hard to come around. You have Darrell Henderson, obviously Cooper Cup, who's having a Defensive Player of the Year type season. Robert Woods, Ben Jefferson, Tyler Higbee.
I think I read someone else, so I'm taking someone else's thoughts. It's too late in the season for him to come in and be anything other than like a spot player. He's gonna have to get caught up on an offense,
Yeah.
which means you're putting him in, telling him which route to run, and then he's gonna get extra attention from the defense on that play. So I just think it's
Yeah,
um, like a
like
fart machine or fireworks. You know what I mean? Like in terms of what you could potentially get,
yeah,
is you can try to throw the ball to him. The defense is going to read the screen you're trying to throw, break up the pass, cause a turnover. That's like a high likelihood. Or you're going to catch him fighting over a ball. Maybe he draws a penalty, but he hasn't played in a little while. He might be a little step slow.
yeah, the
Then
rusty.
he comes up limp. Then he doesn't play for like 7 weeks and comes back in the playoff and kills us. Is pretty much what I'm
Yeah,
expecting is going to happen.
yeah. So yeah,
He's gonna get some random spot opportunity and maybe he converts. But I think
yeah.
that
That's what I hope. I have
yeah,
Darrell Henderson and Robert Woods on my fantasy team.
yeah.
So yeah, that Odell news was not good.
You don't you hope for the sake of the NFL and all that is holy. You know what I mean? Because it's like
Yeah,
Cleveland didn't get anything for that. And he's gonna go play for the Rams and make the Rams better, and then the Rams win the Super Bowl. That's kind of weird, right? They straight up cut Odell Beckham Jr. because nobody would trade for that for what they wanted for him.
yeah,
Goes inside of the Rams, wins the Super Bowl. But I say that to say Colts are 4-2 in their last six. Only losses are overtime losses to the Rams and Ravens, arguably a couple of the best teams in the NFL. So we do have to feel pretty good about that, right? Coming back around off after starting off 1-3, right? To come back and are now 4-5. Definitely playing middling football if I've ever seen it. Flashes of elite offense,
yeah,
flashes of good situational defense. Um, Rigoberto Sanchez is punting the absolute dog shit out of a football. Uh,
yeah.
kicking
Yeah,
game has been a toss up, right? You got like a couple
yeah.
kickers.
I haven't really liked how. What was his nickname? Like
Michael
I believe he
Badgley.
had like. Yeah, he has like a sort of nickname that I thought was really fun, like
Oh, really?
the Honey Badger. What was like Honey? Money Badger.
The
Money Badger. Yeah,
money
there we go.
badger. I'm with
Yeah,
that.
Money Badger. Yeah,
I'm
really
with
like
that.
that. I really want the Colts to keep Money Badger and let go of Blankenship. I just never truly liked Blankenship. So yeah, I'm team Money Badger.
Well, I mean, he's gonna get he's the hot hand's gonna get fed, right? And he has held up his end of the bargain
Yeah,
so far.
he's been perfect, and he has been kicking some really stressful situation.
Yeah.
Game time PAT against the Titans. That was probably like the biggest kick of his career, and he nailed it.
Mhm.
So yeah, why go with Blankenship when not been great, not been bad either, but
No, and certainly it appears like he's someone you can't necessarily rely on in all kicking
no,
situations.
yeah, I just don't. I don't really trust him. I just don't trust. He doesn't give me that security. It's sort of like you remember like Adam Vinatieri's like I believe it was 2019
Hmm.
season, where every time he came to kick, you're like crossing your fingers, saying like, "Please make this one."
Right. So obviously this week, the Houston Texans have a bye. And obviously Colts have a division game hosting the Jags. The Titans host the Saints. We were kind of talking prior about who we kind of thought was going to win here. I'm picking against or picking the Titans to win until they lose, and then I think they're off the rails.
Yeah,
Without
yeah.
Derrick Henry, it's gonna
I
take
I
it's gonna
think
take some
I think
time.
they lose this one. Yeah, I believe this is the one they lose, and then
I just can't. I'm
the
not
shit
putting
goes
money on
south.
Trevor Simeon. It's not happening. It's
No,
not.
no, no, and not putting any money. Just like a
Yeah.
gut feeling. What's the odds on
It,
that game? What's the money line looking like?
I want to say probably 4 or 5 points.
5.5 Titans. That makes
Yeah,
sense. Let me
probably.
check. But
I want to say they're probably
I
like
if I
four and a
had to
half,
put it,
five.
I would say 5.5 Titans. Let me check that. Titans Saints money line. Yeah, 3 Titans. That's lower than I thought.
Yeah, I would buy Titans by three
Yeah, but
plus.
I
Um,
would. Yeah,
so when I was doing the article I write every week for betting, by the way, we hit our
yeah,
parlay last week. Just throwing this out there for the people that listen to our podcast. I usually accompany this podcast with an article about sports betting. Sports betting is sort of new here in Indiana. It just became legal within the last couple of years. Um, every week I put out, minimum I try to do about 5 to 6 games where we're primarily betting against the spread. This week, I didn't feel very good about hardly any of the games. I think there was only 2 underdogs that I was comfortable like betting on. I see a lot of blowouts this week, for example. But last week the 5 games we predicted last week, we would have won all those. So if anybody had
yeah,
been reading our articles and betting accordingly, we're regularly winning like 4 of the 5 games I'll predict in a week, or the 5 out of the 6 or whatever. Of course, you're going to be right more often when you're playing with a spread. Um, but yeah, this week there's a lot of big
you
10 plus point
you
spreads.
you expecting a blowout for the Colts this week? Against the Jags. James Robinson is expected to be out. Trevor Lawrence has a calf injury.
Yeah, so if I had to call it, this is gonna be one of those games where it'll irritate you. The Colts are gonna get up big and let just a dog shit Jags team hang around. But I still expect them to cover. a double digit spread up. I want to say 10.5 or 11 is where they're at, and I think
Yeah.
that they'll do more in cover. But again, it'll be one of those games where they're up 28 to 3, and then the game finishes like 35-31 or something, and you're like, what's that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is this game?
My guess is more or less like 34-10, something
Yeah.
like that. I just don't see the Jacks offense doing anything right now, especially with Robinson out, Lawrence hobbled.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have any depth. But that's a lot. I mean, a lot of teams in the NFL at this point are playing guys off the street, right? Or
Yeah.
undrafted free agents. But yeah, there's not a lot of simulations you're going to run where the Colts are going to lose this game.
No.
But being irresponsible with the football will get you in a lot of trouble that's just hard to get out of. Offense is hard to do. It's harder to play defense, and that's one of the things I wanted to hit on today. A lot of people are talking. I've been hearing a lot. I've also said a lot of earlier, very early in the season. There was a moment where I'd been talking about, like, you gotta fire a guy like Frank Reich and go after something better because there's somebody better. I am that person, but I'll get there. The reality is, you're not gonna do that. So this regime's gonna have to make it. And then if that's the case, then you're gonna have to look at what are the glaring errors that you hope to fix. And I think, just as I had said before the podcast, right? Like, athletes need to be training like track athletes instead of like human bowling balls, right?
Yeah.
And you'll get better longevity out of players. And that's my big fear with this season is that the Colts will be playing meaningful football far too late in a season,
Yeah.
in
Well,
which
up to
you
a point. Yeah.
you may, I mean, if you think the Colts right now are not in a playoff contention, they're like 12th in the AFC. Um, so I'm with a lot of people that are like, why aren't we just sitting Carson Wentz? Well, if you lose a game unexpectedly and it just sets you too far back, then expect that, but it still might be too late, I'm afraid. Because if you look at the way the schedule is going to sort of line up here, like I said, the Colts are going to be back above 500 by the end of November. Think
Yeah.
about it. They'll be back above 500. They'll be in a playoff picture. Injuries are going to start piling up, and it's a 50-50, right? Colts are looking pretty
Yeah.
healthy right now. Recent success. We are a week away, by the way, or less than a week, I think, from Hard Knocks. So
Yeah.
I'm expecting when Hard Knocks comes out, obviously there's some dramatic thing going on within the organization. It's just been eerie quiet, I think.
Yeah. 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 It's been
In
really
a
quiet. Yeah.
in a season where you start off like real bad, and then of course have played lights. I would argue the Colts have played lights out in terms of what it takes to win football games. In the last like 6 weeks, they showed up,
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
potentially
Offense been
winning.
playing really well. I don't know. I don't know if the defense has been playing like
No,
that well. Offense certainly has. Jonathan Taylor has really stepped up over the last 6 weeks. Michael Pittman Jr. has stepped up. Carson Wentz has been playing really well.
yeah,
Save that Titans game. He's been great.
yeah,
No one we needed him the most, but yeah, he's been really good.
yeah.
But the defense,
Other than when
that's
we needed them the most.
other than the game where he was supposed to ball out, he did not show up on that one. But other than that, he's been great.
Yeah.
Now I don't think the defense has been playing well, and I'm really worried about this defense.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, I get that they are without their top two safeties and that, but some stuff is just inexcusable.
I feel like we've been saying about the back end of the Colts defense for a decade.
Yeah.
That
Bob
they
Sanders, Malik Hooker. Yeah. It's like a curse at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Is it too soon to say something about that?
it's like playing whack-a-mole, right? One problem pops up, you devote assets to solving that problem, and another problem pops up.
And two more pops up. Yeah. It's like,
and
yeah.
it it sucks when you devote assets to a position and then you have to keep devoting assets. You know, we call it QB purgatory, right? But there are teams that are just like in purgatory. Every year they'll take a shot at a guy and they don't make it. He ends up washing out or washing out of the org or washing out of the league. And then like I want to say in the last couple of years, we learned, late in the year, most of these teams in the NFL are putting out guys off the street, off out to
Yeah,
play. So the NFL is a war of attrition, and until these organizations start treating their athletes differently, and making sure that they're primed to play, and that you come out strong. Because if you look at all the veteran quarterbacks in the NFL, look at their team's win-loss record right now. Where do you want to be? 7-2 or 4-5, having lost your two most important division games and going to have to claw back for a wild card spot you might not get in a season where you absolutely had the talent. And here's what's going to be the worst part about all this, because there's a lot of people out there like,
yeah.
oh, I don't poop on their parade. I'm absolutely going to shit all over the Colts parade. They're going to play themselves into a playoff spot and they're going to get into a wild card and they're going to play road games and they're going to get hoed. And when I say hoed, they're going to get hoed out by the officials in a
Yeah,
road playoff game, and it's just going to burn people's ass. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. Told you so. You got to be playing home games in the playoffs so you can get some home love, because it's like if you've ever watched any football game and taken it like to the chest, it's any given Sunday. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter who versus who, what the line is, who's healthy, who's injured, it doesn't matter.
yeah. And anything can happen. Yeah,
Anything can
any
happen.
team can beat any team, any week. Yeah,
And what's going to end up happening is the Colts are going to like be in a position to beat like the Bills or like Ravens. And if you get this, then oh, look who beat who, and the Colts have a waltz into the Super Bowl and a blown call in a road contest, and everybody's like, oh, that's why you don't start 1-3. That's why you don't
yeah.
lose both them games to the Titans, so they can lean so heavy. They should call themselves the Tennessee Henrys, and hope that they're able to continue winning, because that's the other side of this coin, right? So as much as we
Yeah,
want to talk about mismanaging the Colts, right, and how they should have already benched Carson Wentz, right? Well, the Tennessee Titans should have had a more diverse threat profile, so they weren't leaning so heavily, or better threat density, so they weren't leaning so heavily on King Henry, and now they're without him.
yeah. What
They
was
got to
like
win without him, though.
what was the expression? Like, is it like waiting for the other shoe to drop? Is that the correct expression to use with the
Yeah,
Titans?
yeah, that's a great expression to
Yeah.
use for the Titans.
Ah,
You
yes.
are just waiting for what happens when the edges keep contained, the backers fill the holes, and you're at your play action. You're not able to move the line of scrimmage on that defensive front, right? And they stop your run where it stands every play. They just fill the holes correctly and keep the gaps, right? Like we did everything. We played
Yeah.
good gap defense, and then you're forced to throw. And then I don't think he has enough reps in. So I'm when I watch football, I watch ball location, timing, when did he let go of the football? And when you watch Ryan Tannehill, you're like, oh, he's gonna get caught. He's gonna get caught. Ball's coming out late. He's got great location. Ball's coming out late. He's got velocity. Doesn't have a lot of velocity. So what happens when the ball comes out late and it doesn't have a ton of velocity on it? It's
It
predictable
gets big.
ball that's getting picked. So I'm kind of, I'm never happy to see my biggest rival down their best player. You
Yeah, but
always
that
want to, you
was yeah,
always want to beat
that
them
was
heads up.
yeah,
So
but we talked about it a lot, but you cannot like reasonably expect to use a guy that much, give him like 400 touches and expect him to like keep doing that forever.
yeah,
Eventually, you give a guy 400 touches in the most like physical position in the NFL, he's
right.
getting hit almost every play. Eventually, that is going to result in an injury. The problem also with running backs is that most of the time, they get injured and it's like a vicious circle where once the first injury hits, it's like way more common to get like that second injury, that third injury.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, Titans are basically like screwed long term.
Right. And it's because, for example, like there's star players outside of Henry. When I say star players, like AJ Brown and Julio Jones. Well, Julio's on the back end of his career. And AJ Brown, like how long is he gonna hang around being the only show in town? Julio goes down, no King Henry, no real run game to lean on. He's gonna get a lot of attention. If I'm a coach right now, I'm playing probably too high safety, probably trying to bring one down to defend the run, and largely just trying to put two guys, two on Brown, two on Jones, and then what are you going to beat us with? A tight end? Like
Yeah,
you're going to have to.
yeah,
And
they
that's
don't
what, for
have
the record,
any.
that's sort of how the Colts played that, and although not well. And again, I think that's what we were kind of talking about. Like, what do the Colts need the most? Well, they need Deo and Quiddy
Quiddy
Pay to
Pay, yeah,
pan out and quick.
yeah,
And I think what I saw something last week that I've watched just enough film to say this. I saw something last week that made me be like, oh, there is the hit that Quiddy Pay has. I
yeah,
think it was Quiddy Pay has on the quarterback.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
you
yeah.
watch, he got free way before he hit him, and he stops, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh shit, he didn't realize he basically like completely like untouched between him and the quarterback, and you see him standing still, and you're like, what the fuck is he doing? And then he of course like he runs at him, and I don't remember if he knocks the ball out of his hand or if the ball, anyway, it doesn't matter. Got a kid on the quarterback.
yeah, yeah. He got the hit, but I believe that
He
the
froze.
Johnson got like a quick release, and then Quiddy like sort of like seems like he's going to hit him full speed, and he just like holds up like at the very last second, avoids the flag, so the heads up play by him.
Yeah. No, it was no, it was before that where like he got free of the block, and I think he just caught in that sort of no man's land.
Yeah,
But it made me
I don't
realize like,
remember that.
oh, there's obviously I say there's still hope, right? Where we talk about like Deo week 1 has 16 defensive reps and comes up with no statistics, right? Like you want a little more fulfilling outing out of those guys. But if those guys
Yeah,
pan out and they can become sort of a good base for pass rush, then obviously the Colts are just a man cover corner away. Um,
from being a really good
for
defense.
being
Yeah.
a really good defense.
No,
And
yeah,
I
but
think
that's you
right
have to
now
keep in mind
they're
that
too much of a
that's a big
liability.
if.
Oh, and I mean, it's not something you can solve
You're banking
in
on.
a
Yeah, it's not.
season.
But I have like what Quiddy looks okay. He looks better than either Van. Well, we never truly got to see Ben Banago, but he already looks better than him.
Yeah.
Tycoon Lewis will be back next year, hopefully like fully healthy. He was making some solid plays. They will be back.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that the Colts have to get a guy in free agency and an edge rusher.
Or like a veteran.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know who will be available, and you truly like never know because guys might get re-signed, guys might get
Right.
released, but like I really hope that they would sign Clowney. Clowney was like my biggest crush this offseason. He's been balling out also with the Browns, but uh,
Yeah, because I mean that
just
that defense might end up being the best unit that team's got, right?
and it starts with a guy like Garrett. You need a guy. Well, I know you can like a guy like Garrett is not a guy that you can just go out and get. He's the
Right.
first overall pick for a reason.
Right.
But you need that pass rusher you can rely upon, like on third and long, to get the play, get the pressure,
Yeah.
get the stop, get off the field. Colts don't have that.
Yeah.
They just don't have that right now. That's what's been killing them. Those third and long completions.
Yeah.
Stay on the field after third and 8, third and 9. The other team like gets that, and it's just so disencouraging. Watching that, and you're like, we need a guy that can come in and rush the passer. Yeah, no free agents there, at least not this year.
No,
No,
and
you have
we,
Von Miller, who will be 32. Yeah, Emmanuel Ogba from the Dolphins. That's a guy I really like.
mhm.
Harris from the Lions. Solomon Thomas, that was a guy that I really, really liked. The draft class. But yeah, hopefully, they go out and make a move.
Yeah, and I think obviously it's pretty much a foregone conclusion based on what we're talking about. The Colts are going to be without their first round draft pick.
Yeah,
I think that it's just like you said. I think there's enough really bad organizations in the NFL that are going to bleed talent. It's gonna dilute. Well, not necessarily dilute. It's gonna yeah. That's probably a good word there.
yeah,
It's gonna dilute the free agency pool because guys ultimately do have some agency where they go, right? Like they can it doesn't matter if you're in a contract or not, they can kind of make it happen. And that's what I think has to happen for the Colts. Like in order for the Colts to compete with what the Rams are capable of right now, I feel like the Rams can go out and get anybody, right? I
yeah.
mean, in a matter of
Yes,
like
that's what it seems
two
like right
weeks,
now.
they
Yeah,
acquired Von Miller and Odell Beckham
and
Jr.
Odell Beckham Jr. Yeah,
Like that's a big couple of pieces that if those guys come in and are even able to contribute, and I say that like Von Miller is not one of the best players in the NFL, and also like for a time Odell Beckham Jr. was one of the most dangerous red zone wide receivers in the NFL had ever seen, and particularly on the deep ball. Um, it was just an insane catch radius, just really good hands. But like
yeah,
we've said, he's coming in a little late in the season to make an impact
yeah,
on a
yeah. A
roster
little
that
too
looks pretty
late to like
stacked.
learn the
Um,
playbook, complicated playbook. The Rams offense is not that easy to learn. They have been doing like really interesting things.
yeah, they do.
It's not.
They do motion or a shift plus motion almost every play, and I think because I try to do that stuff with with the semi-pro guys I coach, and we
Yeah,
realized it was too complex for us working adults. You know what I mean? Like just having a base formation and then a formation uh
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're
your
motioning
motion
too.
it's not motioning to shifting to and then motioning out of the formation you shifted to was like too much for guys because then they'd forget the play that we were going to run probably just because we're a bunch of stoners, but that's just the way that goes. But when we watch the NFL, the Rams are sort of doing what you want to see teams do. First of all, they lost their number one running back, so they're platooning, and then they spread the ball around. They
Yeah,
have three or four guys that would be number one or two wide receivers everywhere else.
yeah,
And obviously they're more than making do at running back without their number one guy. But like I said, when they're making acquisitions like that, the Colts need to do this. The Colts need to be in a position where you're X and two mid to late through a season, right on the back half of a season, where guys are saying, "I want to go play there because I actually think they can win this year," right? Because that's what Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. have done. If they've kind of looked back and say, where could I get in and fit in and also potentially contribute and win,
yeah,
right? Who wants to go somewhere and be a knockout on a terrible
yeah,
team? So can't blame the guys like that. But I want that for us here, right? I don't want to see the talent leave and go to the Gold
yeah. Go
Coast.
elsewhere. Yeah,
I want to see it come here. So I don't know what Indiana or Indianapolis can do to be more welcoming to professional athletes, but I'd love to. I think downtown Indianapolis is beautiful. I'd recommend that if anybody comes to the United States, you want to see like a really nice looking downtown area. It looks really welcoming, especially if you're from out of town. Downtown Indianapolis is great. Um, so yeah, I'd really like to see that somehow help the Colts. I also think like 56th Street is really far away from your stadium, so that does make it a little weird when your football team doesn't practice anywhere near and I guess that's not the same for everybody, but like it's just weird that the Colts practice, 40 minutes away from where they play. Which is just seems weird to do that. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's what the Colts are missing is those free agent gets, right? Because it's one thing to want and go out and acquire, but when people want to
Want to
come,
come
they
play for you,
want to
yeah.
come play for you. That's where
And
the
I
Colts
thought
need.
that was the case when Luck was in town. I know it sucks to remember that, but yeah, when Luck was here, it seemed like every big free agent wanted to come play for the Colts. It
Yeah,
was a really good time.
yeah. If you,
But yeah, you start thinking about what those free agents got you. It's almost nothing. But perhaps Eric Ebron, gave you that the really solid season where he got like 15 touchdowns. Was it like
mhm,
something like that? Then who else? Because Andre Johnson was not good here. Frank Gore, was like,
too late.
yeah. And we got Jonathan Hankins, that defensive tackle from the Giants.
Hmm.
That was not good here.
Yeah.
Who else? So now I'm starting like to remember, and it's just
But
not
yeah, I mean,
great.
that's you get that with great quarterback play, and that was kind of been what we've been talking about so far this year. Is the Colts spent all this draft capital, and then they paid all this money to Carson Wentz. Start off a little rocky. The offensive line plays obviously improved greatly. The
Yeah.
run game has sort of stepped up its game to where the offense was operating like a finely tuned machine, right? Carson Wentz, like we said, top 8 or 10 in the NFL in terms of production.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously it's sort of frustrating, right? Because you think about if you just manage a couple games differently, then what we do from here on out doesn't feel like it's so much all or nothing, which is
No, yeah.
unfortunate. The sort of spot the Colts are in, where it's like you kind of got to win all of your remaining games, or almost
Yeah,
all of
you
them.
know, well, I agree with you on that one. I still believe that the Colts win against the Ravens and they win against the Titans the second game. Sooner or later, like they have clear, evident flaws that sooner or later are going to be uncovered, either in the playoffs or
Right.
later in the season.
I
This
mean,
is not a team that is ready to compete just yet. You still are like 2 or 3 guys away from building a proper team. Ballard knew that. He said it himself.
yeah. And
The Super
and
Bowl window is cracking open, not open yet.
right. And I think that Carson Wentz can force that window open early to sort of continue that narrative. I feel like Carson Wentz capable of pushing that window open, but ultimately, it's going to come back to what you said. The secondary's inability to stop the opposing deep passing game and them converting on third down. We're not getting enough
Yeah,
of a pass rush. That's the problem. It's not going to be the offense. It's whoever makes the first mistake, and then whoever is more productive on offense. Um, because the Colts are a wet paper bag, it looks like in the secondary when it
yeah,
matters. So that's something to sort of watch. Is of course, obviously, it's great to be playing meaningful football at this juncture. We were talking before the podcast about how there's like 8 teams in the league right now that like none of their games matter. You have like two or
yeah,
less wins right now. None of those games are important. There's no sense in being in any of those games. You want the worst outcome possible, the highest draft picks possible. Like, you know what I mean? Um, but the Colts are playing meaningful football. So I guess that's something to be thankful for. Are playing against a beatable opponent that is beat up. So again, it's sort of going to be one of those games for me anyway, where it's like, it really doesn't matter. I expect the Colts to win and win big,
yeah,
but that
yeah, yeah,
victory
yeah.
that victory is hollow because I expect you should beat a bad team, right?
Yeah,
You've been
you
beating
should
bad
blow
teams.
them out. Yeah,
That's what the Colts are. The Colts are bad team beaters. That's what they are. They just beat bad teams.
yeah, and they
Um,
roll over against the good teams. Yeah,
so yeah. That's been the Once, our 11th episode of the Cultist. I think it's pretty good place to cut us off. Like we've said, big win under the lights. against a bad football team.
Yeah,
Got to
always good
play
to
them.
win by double digits.
Yeah. Gonna get another one this week. Gonna get a lot of fluff, a lot of action as a result, right? You expect to get love from all the talking heads next week talking about like, oh, they're Colts for real. Like, no, they're playing nobodies.
Yeah,
So when you're not playing tough opponents, and I get it, they're like NFL teams, they're all good, they're all billion-dollar entities, Jared. They're all like playing. No, man, some of these teams are not playing like appreciable football at all.
yeah,
And the Colts have got a couple of them leading into tough contests down the road. And like I said, the other way to sell this is, look, the Colts are 4-2 in their last 6, having taken the Rams and Ravens to overtime in those 2 losses, right? So there's a lot of promise and potential. It's just, it might be all for naught. You might play a lot of winning football and not make it to the playoffs. That's just everyone in front of you might also play really meaningful football the rest of the way too. And then you could just get eked out by virtue of not winning one of those games against the Titans, especially if the Titans keep winning. But like you said, we're just waiting on that shoe to drop, and then we'll see what happens when teams take away your run game, and then you're forced to win with the pass, and then they're able to cover the pass too. It's gonna be a long day for the Titans, but yeah, Colts big this weekend. On a roll here. Drawing back to 500, right, is the expectation, right?
yeah,
5 coming out of the weekend. No time to breathe though. Because you gotta play pretty much perfect from here on out. Especially
yeah.
knowing
If you
you're
want to have
playing
a
on
shot
the
at making
road.
playoffs.
You're playing on the road too, so you got to be way better. And yeah, I think that's instead of get better every day, get way better.
Yeah,
Right? You got to get way better every day. So of course, my name is Jared Mulat. I'm here with my friend Mateo Calise. This is the Coltist, a Indianapolis Colts podcast. We appreciate you subscribing to the channel, giving us a little thumbs up. Questions, comments, and concerns are appreciated, and share us if you see us.
yeah. See you all next week.
Yeah, see you next week.